Welcome, everybody, to another episode of By the Block Cast. I'm Krystal, your host. Thank you for being here. Today, we have another amazing guest on with us. Part of the mission of By the Block is to talk about stories of people from the diaspora who have moved over there. And I have a really good friend on with me, Josh. What's up, Josh?
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Hope everybody
Very
good.
good to have you here.
Thank you,
I
thank you.
love Josh's story because Josh is somebody who did it. He's someone from the diaspora who actually grew up in my neighborhood as well. We have lots of childhood friends in common.
Lower East Side, yeah.
Yep.
Born and raised.
And he moved not only to Puerto Rico, but he's actually an entrepreneur and he started his own business. And so I think it's very important for our people, especially here, to hear those stories like yours.
Absolutely.
So let's start. Tell me about yourself. Let's tell our audience about your connection to Puerto
Of
Rico, where you
course.
grew
What's
up.
up, everybody? So my name is Josh Pizarro. I was born and raised in New York City, Lower East Side, like you said. I actually moved out to Puerto Rico in 2020. Before I moved out here, though, from 2015 to 2020, actually, before I came out to PR, I was actually working as a real estate agent in the Lower East Side. Yeah, for Douglas Elliman at one point, and then I worked for other smaller boutique firms when I first started. So that's kind of like where I honed my like real estate skills and understanding, how the markets work and whatnot. And yeah, that gave me the confidence to, move to Puerto Rico and during COVID. And I've always like even when I got into real estate, I've always wanted to be an owner in Puerto Rico. It's just always been, naturally installed in me because of my dad. My dad has been living on the island since 96. He himself is a property owner. And just once I learned real estate and the principles and the importance of ownership, I was just like, yeah, I have to own on the island, on the motherland. So that's where like it really started, like just planting that seed in my head that I'm gonna own there. But I just didn't know how I was gonna do it.
Now, did you grow up going back to Puerto Rico?
I did until I was about, I want to say 19, 20, around when my son was born, is when
Mhm.
I kind of like life hit me, right? Like now you're a dad, you got to make sure that you're working, and it never really dawned on me to like uh travel back and forth often as an adult. But as a kid, yeah. So again, until I was 18 years old, I was here on the island with my mom and my dad.
Nice. So, since you have both perspectives, like growing up in the diaspora, and we grew up in the same neighborhood, our neighborhood is
For
very
sure.
Puerto
Yes,
and
especially
even more
back in the
so
day when
back
we
then.
grew up.
Yeah, before the gentrification and all of that came through.
Exactly.
I mean, it's very diverse neighborhood in general,
For
but
sure.
it is a very Puerto Rican neighborhood. And so I'm curious to see, did you feel like when you went back, especially when you went to move back, did you fit in? Did you feel like
Um,
you fit in?
I'll
Did
I'll
people
be
look at you
honest.
differently?
It is a culture difference, regardless, even if you're from Puerto Rico or not. Just because of how they're raised, right? And I don't mean this. I love my people. Okay, just want to put this out there. I would love my people. But there is a certain lack of understanding when it comes to the diaspora of the states, and then if you grew up here on the island your whole life, you don't necessarily accept most Puerto Ricanos from the States. So I definitely had to deal with that, kind of like not fitting in, but at the same time, hey, look, my mom and my dad are from here, and I grew up visiting.
Mhm.
También yo hablo español, so like I'm able to defend myself, but it is what it is.
That was gonna be my next question. How good is your Spanish? Because that's like the litmus test for
For
everyone.
sure. I mean, my Spanish is pretty good. Listen, when I first got out here, it was a little rusty, of course, because, you know, like in a Puerto Rican household, my mom and my dad spoke to us in Spanish, but we always responded in English. But that understanding of, the language stuck
Mhm.
with me, of course. Like, you can't talk about me and talk negatively about me and not me, me not understand it. But yes, I was a little rusty. And then day to day, conversations with the people and, even grandma and my aunts and stuff like that. I eventually got better. And like everybody else, we're always so scared to use it because we don't talk it so well. And that's a part of the acceptance,
Mhm.
but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think we put more of a burden on ourselves sometimes. Like we
I
become
think
very
so.
self-conscious. It's I don't
for
wanna say it's
sure.
all in our head because it definitely exists, but I do think
Mm,
that once you just try, once you put yourself out there, I think then they understand and they see that it's genuine, and then
yeah,
they
for
try to help
sure.
you.
They tell you I don't speak English, and it's like, that's
Mhm.
cool. I'll help you. You know what I'm saying? Talk to me in
Right,
Spanish, and
exactly,
if you need to learn something in English, I got you. You know what I'm saying? But
exactly. I
that's
love
how
it.
we could get along and move this needle forward.
Yeah, so how would you describe your first year moving back? Like, what were some challenges,
Um,
wins for you? What do you think?
so my first year, I would say was my biggest challenge was language, for sure. And then outside of that, navigating, right? I'm so used to city life, right? Like now I'm on an island. I'm like, all right, I don't know how to get anywhere. I don't
Right.
even know if this GPS is gonna send me to the right location. All the signs are in Spanish also. So sometimes their navigation is literally like, hey, when you see the supermarket on your right hand, make a left. And it's like, I've probably seen about 12 supermarkets since you told me that.
And
So I
from
don't know where I'm
blocks
going.
to me, avenues, like
Yeah, you go from streets and avenues to calle and carretera. I'm like, okay, I gotta learn this. So I think those were my two biggest challenges. But one thing that I did find like homely was the metro area. And I know a lot of people like when they come to like the island, they're like, ah, the metro area is city, is city, is city. But like, I don't know. I grew up in the city, so like it feels like home. And at the same time, I'm maybe 2, 3 blocks away from the beach. So I'm not really complaining about that. But it really genuinely depends when if you are thinking about coming to the island, visit often. I tell people find your comfortability and then you start planning. Because I think that you can't just go cold turkey. I mean, I went cold turkey in a sense where it was COVID. I'm like, guys, I'd rather, be on an island, right, than be in the
mhm.
city and have to be in four walls. I'm like, nah. So that's what really, you know, kind of made me just go cold turkey. But for anybody out there that's really thinking about it, I think that visit often, picture yourself and then just start planning from there. And then things will open up.
Yeah, I like what you said about how you like the metro area. That's what you were used to. That gave you comfortability. And I think when I do consultations with people, and I will tell them like, look, you got to be realistic about your lifestyle and what you
Yeah,
like, what you're used to, what you're going to compromise on, what you're not going to compromise on. If you like that
agreed.
city metro feel, then the metro area is where you're going to want to be. You know,
Agreed.
outside of that might not be for everyone. So I think the metro area gets a bad rap sometimes because it
I think
is
so too.
so city like, but also, that's part of it. That's part of Puerto Rico. It has
I'm
all of
from the city, so nothing surprises me, honestly, right? So, and Lower East Side guys, like, trust me, like, things growing up in the 80s and 90s over there. So,
nice. Awesome. All right. So after your first year of being there and acclimating, getting situated, how did you really start your career? Like, how did you really take your real estate knowledge and bring it
yeah.
there?
So before I came out here, I've always done my homework when it came to like the real estate market in general out here. Again, I had put myself in the mode of, hey, if I make money over here, I'm gonna go and buy on the island. I had this idea where I was gonna like become a millionaire through real estate in New York City, be a real estate agent there and like really kill it. But reality is I was coming from something no other agents really coming from most of the time, which is really zero background in real estate. So I
Hmm.
didn't have any network. I didn't have any understanding. I was learning from like scratch. So it just dawned on me like, okay, this is a very, very, very competitive market out here. What can I take from it? Is maybe I'm not going to hit these $1 million marks and whatnot, but what can I take from it and still be able to, bring it to the island? And one of the things, like I said before, was ownership. It stuck out to me like, okay, hey, if you own this property, you can do long term, you can do short term, you have the opportunities and options pretty much to you. So that understanding of ownership brought me to the island. And now when I got out here, listen guys, the price points over here when it comes to rentals, and I started in arbitration. So I pretty much started my short-term brand through rental arbitration. I would go to owners who were having problems renting out their property and said, "Hey, you know, I'd like to rent out the property, but in turn, I would like to use it for my clients that visit the island."
Right.
So I
And that's
started
a
off
very
like,
common practice, in because
yes,
I used to actually do that in Miami.
Yeah, and it's a great way. I tell people it's a great way to start a brand. Like you're not gonna make a lot of money though. Like you're really not because
Right.
in the arbitration game, you're lucky if you're making anywhere between 300 to 500 bucks a property, right?
Mhm.
That's if depending on the season. But long story short, that helped me build a brand, and then as people see me grow, and I went from one Airbnb until I think I went to six in a year. People started taking me seriously and was like, hey, what if we were to invest with you? Now, my thing in the beginning was, yes, let's do it, but I want to do it with my people. Respectfully,
Right.
I just wanted to do it with my people in the first round. And the reason why is because I wanted us to understand leverage and ownership on the island. And I understand that like everyone's like, oh, you're adding to the problems with Airbnb, et cetera, et cetera. I want people to understand this. The island thrives 85 to 90% tourism. That's just the reality, right? I am not the only person that owns Airbnbs. You have a lot of owners from the actual island
That's
who
there's
are
a lot of
also
Puerto Ricanos from the
Puerto
island.
Ricanos from the island that own
It's
Airbnbs.
income for them. It is a good
It's
source.
income, and it's a great source of income, and it's a way of starting a business and making money. And now you have money to be able to invest into long-term rental, right? Because the reality is we all gotta crawl before we walk, right? And one of the things that I learned in the Puerto Rico market is that, price point is everything, right? So when I purchase a property, it will pretty much that the price point that I purchase at will allow me to decide what my rental values are, right? So let's just say I purchase at $100,000. I have two apartments. My $100,000 on mortgage with taxes and everything on a monthly basis is $1,000 a month. Now I have to recoup that $1,000 a month and at least be able to make some kind of profitability so that I can maintain the property itself, right? Because that's another thing that a lot of people don't really take into consideration. We have to pay taxes and we have to maintain the property. That doesn't go, nobody else is going to pay that for you.
1,000%.
And so with that understanding and knowledge, I can now say, hey, okay, I have this two bedroom and this one bedroom. Let's just say I'm somebody that I may not want to, I don't want to hurt the economy. I don't want to, make everything Airbnb. Well, cool. Now you have an option of doing one Airbnb and one long-term rental, right? And now you can play around with the market and understand, what the profitabilities are per property and you can decide, what operation works best for you. But I don't think that we should demonize, Airbnb just because the media says, well, they're the reason why rents are going up. That's very untrue, guys, because here's the reality. If Airbnb doesn't exist, there's still hotels. So
Mhm.
guess what? And hotel lobbying are like some of the biggest lobbyists in the world, guys. So the reality is they can come in and with bigger projects than us, not just one apartment. They can come in and a $2 billion project and the whole thing is hotels and short-term stays. Are
Right.
we really upset with them the way we are upset with the individual owners? I think that we need to like have an understanding of the landscape before
Mhm.
we demonize people and before we demonize an industry.
Yeah.
Because again, the island thrives on tourism and we need it.
Yeah, I think that's a excellent point. I think there's valid points on both sides, right? Have
For
there been
sure.
major
Absolutely.
areas that have been displaced where people have been kicked out of full buildings and
And that's what
have
I
there
don't agree with.
right.
That
There's
breaks my
a
heart,
right
right?
way
So
and a wrong way to do it. There's a way to do it with respect. Um,
absolutely.
good intentions, and then there's 100% a wrong way to do it. I think people also always assume that if you're a short-term rental person in Puerto Rico, you benefit off of Act 60.
Mm,
And while there are people who benefit off of Act 60, actually, there's not that many
not
Airbnbs
that many
that
at
you
all.
really want to look at the hedge fund managers, the capital gains, those people
Exactly. That
benefit
part.
off of Act 60 millions and billions. Um,
Exactly.
I said, I'm not saying that, this is not a right or wrong conversation because
It's
like
not
I think you need to look at it from both perspectives. But the
for
the
sure.
facts are that in the short-term rental business, there actually are not that many people that profit off of Act 60, which means you do pay taxes. You pay taxes
Agreed.
back into the economy. And I think it's important too for somebody like you, who's an example that you may do short-term, long-term rentals, whatever it is, but you live on the island, right? So you came
Agreed.
back, which means if you make money off of those, you invest that money back in. You buy
Back
your
into the
groceries
island.
there, your gas, all those sort of things, right?
Correct.
Where there are other people who benefit off of things like Act 60, They make all that tax-free money and then they spend it somewhere else. They spend it in the
Absolutely.
States, another country. So I tell people this about short-term rentals. Until they change the laws, there's no way around it. Until they get rid of that law, there's no way around it. The only thing that people like you and I can do is educate people on how to do it more respectfully, do it with better intentions and better outcomes. And like you said, do it with our people. Because one of the things
Exactly.
that I love about what you and your family does is you do give back to the community. So, can you talk a little bit about how you incorporate the locals into your structure and
Absolutely.
community center you guys have created? I think that's all beautiful for
Yes.
people to hear.
Yeah, so well, before we get into the community center, I do want to put this out there in regards to the Act 60 because it's something that we spoke behind the scenes. I agree that not a lot of Airbnb owners take advantage of that act because the reality is, like you said, unless you're like these multimillionaires that are coming out here, you're not really benefiting from these tax benefits. But now, here's one thing that I will say that we can all benefit from. People from the island, people from the States, and if you really want to be a part of, the solution is opportunity zones. And so for people that don't know, Puerto Rico actually has opportunity zones for both inside and outside investors to purchase properties where 90% is capital gains tax free. Now, that means you pay 10% on whatever profitability you're making on that property. Now, here's why that's a super important. And like you said, whatever money we make, we keep, we put back into the island, back into infrastructure. One of the things like you explained, our community center. One of the things that we're looking at a long-term base is long-term rentals, affordable rentals, right? Another thing that I wanted to incorporate with the long-term rentals is actually a program that will actually teach our tenants how to become owners, right? Whether it be credit repair, whether it be, financial help, whether it be, network. A lot of the times we're just not educated enough to be able to reach these resources. But what if we became owners that have that morality, that have that? I don't want you to be my renter forever. I actually want you to own, and I want you to do the same thing that I'm doing because guess what? There's 300 plus thousand properties out here that are vacated, are completely just not being used. I need people. I can't do this alone. I actually need people like us that are going to continue investing. I just full circle the Act 60, let's talk about opportunity zones with our people so that way that we can actually buy back the block. And then, like you said, my dad, a retired school teacher, he's amazing. He actually started a community center here for children for after school, pretty much. It's like an after school program. You get help with like your homework and, pretty much a lot of families do work, right? So 5, 6 o'clock. And the reality is you don't want your kid out in the street alone or you don't want your kid home alone. So my dad has created a space, a safe space for the kids to, the neighborhood kids to come to, get some work. He even feeds them, which is pretty cool. They get a little, lunch there or whatnot. And I just feel like these are the things that we can all create through partnerships, right? Like that's my dad, he's doing his thing, whatever, but like what if we came together and, created something on a bigger level, So yeah, man, I would hope that, some of the steps that we're taking, we're definitely showing people the opportunities out here and how we can actually impact the island and help.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you talked about larger infrastructure projects. When you
Absolutely.
speak to people, I think it's amazing like, what long-term or short-term rentals that you employ Puerto Rican property managers, Puerto Ricanos who live
Absolutely.
on the island to clean, to maintain,
Absolutely.
do all of those things 100%. But there is so much more that we can do just besides that. And again, like you said, I think it's uniting. If we are able to, do these things and make this money, then what's to say that five people can't come together, pool some of that money together and open a school? We got the
Agreed.
community center. What about the school next? Maybe we open a charter school for the kids in the community, or we open a community garden, where everybody can benefit off of that or create different programming. So I always
Yep.
tell people, like, you got to see the positive in things. You got to look at the opportunities that are there. Do these laws suck? Yes, they do. I'll
Absolutely.
100% they do. They're not used in the correct way, right? And so sure, but that doesn't matter. Like you said, we can be a totally different person with a different mentality going in there with look, maybe I'm going to do short-term rentals for the first year that I live there. I'll get a multifamily. And then once I'm able to get on my feet and, start to make money, my next goal will be to turn that the next year into a long-term rental.
Absolutely.
For long-term rentals, there's so many tax benefits for people out there that I only learned about recently. I think that that's a great opportunity where then you can take that short-term rental money, flip it into a long-term rental, and then really be able to help the people on the islands.
One of the things, one of the things that I've actually done with my portfolio, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, I did start with all Airbnbs in the beginning, and now we're actually slowly converting into long term. So we're going to do half long term, half short term.
I love
And
that.
like you said, we were able to do that through pooling money, through two partners of mine. And then not only that, but we were also able to do our homework on the market, like you explained, understanding that, long-term rentals are tax beneficial for us. So, just having having the education and understanding will just give you options to be able to have an impact on the island.
Yeah. I think you have to learn the system and you have to learn how to use it, not only your personal benefit, but for the islands. And we have to beat them at their own game. And if this is what
Yeah,
they set up and this is what we have, okay, no problem. I'll play
this
by
is
your
how we got to do it.
but I'm
Yeah,
gonna
and
do
it's the rules of the game. Yeah, and it's the rules of the game. It's like no different from any sport that you play, right? Like come in with your team and make the impact. And if your team is your people, then we have nothing to complain about, right? Like that's just the reality. Let's be beneficial to one another. And then not only that, but for the island, because that's one thing I will say. Like I love our people, but we do a lot of complaining, right? From the States, we do a lot of complaining, and it's like, all right, what we gonna do about it? That's all I gotta say. What are we gonna do about it? Are we gonna continue to just be emotional about it and say,
right.
oh, well, they're taking the island, they're taking the beaches, they're taking this, or are you gonna get upset enough to actually put some action into the plan? That's just a reality, and that's where we are now, especially with this administration. Gosh, I think they just finished closing out FEMA within the last couple months. So we're no longer getting that help. They're closing out on, government assistance.
Yeah.
So what are we waiting for? Are we really waiting to lose the island as a whole completely, or are we willing to put some action behind some of these words of emotions that we have? You know what I mean?
100%. I think it's time that we, I always say the government is not going to come save us. Not here and not there. We know what they
Never.
are. That's a totally different beast. And you got to pick, your fight, right? Like some people love going and protesting. They love that political aspect of it. There are many people who are fighting the laws and changing them. There are people boots on the ground who are feeding people and creating
Yep.
community centers. You got to find what works for you, but there are so many opportunities and it's not going to be them, right? We have to start pooling our private money together, bringing like
Agreed.
minds together to really start to implement these changes out there. And I believe the money is out there. I know the money is out there. And especially too, being here in the diaspora. And that I think
Absolutely.
is one of the benefits and things that people on the island don't always realize that in growing up here and having all the resources and the education and the connections here, we know what's possible, right? And we've seen
Agreed.
what's possible. We grew up with Nina Health Clinic, right? In the community and Henry Street Settlement and all of those things. And so we know what's possible. We have also seen firsthand what I think they're going through now, which is the gentrification. I remember our neighborhood growing up, and I remember, I don't know if you remember
Mm-hmm.
the Puerto Rican village on 4th Street between 3rd and 4th Street.
Absolutely.
That was
We
little Puerto.
call Lower East Side for a reason. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
And it was devastating when they
So,
tore that down. It was devastating when they closed the school across the street from my mom's house right now, the blue school on the corner on Houston. That was a community school,
hmm
completely privatized it.
they
And
closed the boys club centers.
the boys
That
and
was
girls,
horrible. That was,
yeah, we've seen it. We've seen firsthand what's happened. And I know for me, when I
hmm
went back to Puerto Rico and I started to wake up and see what was going on, it broke my heart because I knew what was coming. I could see it. I already
what was
lived.
coming.
And I think people like you and I go back with
Agreed.
that part of like, look, we know what's possible. We know what's coming. Let's just unite so that we can try to combat this as much
hmm
as we can until the government gets there. Act together,
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree, man. Without uniting, we're gonna lose. Like that's just the reality, right? Like, so I really hope that with these conversations and, moving forward with, some of the network that we can build out and some of the resources that we can help other people become owners. That's my biggest goal is I don't want to be the only owner over here. I want to help other people that come from the States and become owners on the island and understand what's going on over here, right? Be a part of the culture. Don't just visit, but be a owner in it and understand like, okay, this is where I can make my impact. This is where I can, retire. How about like let's look at retirement ages, man. Like this is a paradise. Why wouldn't we?
Wealth. Anybody who studies finance and wealth understands that real estate is what builds a lot of generational wealth, And so being
Thousand
able,
percent.
you and I, to purchase a piece of property there and have it, and then have it for our kids and continue that cycle. And now that we understand the inheritance laws, we will make sure
Yep,
that the wills are buttoned up and things are lined up so that that doesn't continue to happen
exactly.
down the road. I get a lot of questions from people, and they're always like, is by the block just for Puerto Ricans, right? The reality is no, I can't make by the block just for Puerto
No,
Ricans. But what I
it's
do
not
is
possible.
for Puerto Ricans from the diaspora, 100%. I want to encourage more Puerto Ricans from the diaspora to go back, to get involved, to open up businesses, because beyond real estate, there's so much opportunity over there.
I would love to like business consult with people because that's another thing that like, outside of building my brand and my business, I understand the landscape over here. There are so many opportunities for business owners, whether it be through consulting, whether it be through store ownership, whether it be barbershops, whether it's
Yes.
just so many opportunities over here for the everyday 9 to 5 like grinder. Yeah,
Hmm.
like if you have a little hustle in you and a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit in you, you can make things happen over here. There's a lot of opportunities. Yeah, we need to really like showcase that and spread light on that for the people of the States. I was thinking about this the other day, and like one thing that I did grow up hearing all the time is, ay, que no hay chavo en la isla, right? Que no hay dinero allá en la isla. And it's like, why do y'all always say that? And for those that don't speak Spanish, they would always say there's no money on the island, right? And I sat and I thought about it. I'm like, but now I understand why they used to say that. They grew up in a whole different era, right?
They grew
Like
up with no
there
money
was
on the.
genuinely yeah, yeah, there was genuinely no money on the island. No, that's for sure.
Yep.
But now, these eras that we live in, with the internet, with, having these social media platforms and
Mhm.
everybody interconnecting, there's money. There's going to be money. There's people that want to put money into the island. And I think
Mhm.
that we need to erase what has been told to us because let me tell you, one thing that I will tell you, I tell my kids all the time. Puerto Rico has a lot of opportunity. I'm setting this up not only for me, but for y'all,
Yep.
right? Because there's still going to be properties over here. There's still going to be business over here. There's still a lot of this agriculture over here. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm going to teach my kids that there's insane opportunity. There's actually more opportunity to me here than there is in the States. Now,
Yep.
if you're resourceful, you'll interconnect and become the bridge from the island to the States, which, I can't do it alone. So please, people, let's work, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And there's so many of us out there. I think that's what I found in the journey is like we have to be better about uniting together and really pooling our resources.
Hmm.
But there's so many people who have the right intentions, who really do want to go and live and move back and give back to the community and bring all the amazing things that come with them. Especially like you said, in this IT era, all these tech jobs, all these remote jobs
Hmm.
in that IT space right now.
AI is
That's
changing it.
AI, like that's never going to go away. So we can have the opportunity, I think, to get ahead of that. Like out here, my daughter went through a tech program. They paid $7,000 free for her to get her tech certifications. And that's a state funded program.
Amazing.
Like we can bring those sort of things to Puerto Rico and get our youth trained up in those things. And, through community centers like
Agreed.
your initiatives, teach them the things, teach them real estate, teach them stocks and
Agreed.
investing, teach them crypto, teach them everything, going on right now and the opportunities that are available to them. So tell me about projects that you're working on.
Uh, so yes, let me give the name of my business. It's PR Vacation Stays with an S. You can find us on all social media handles. Same thing, PR Vacation Stays. Thank God, we were able to build a pretty solid following on Instagram, 34,000 followers. organically. But I'm definitely like just proud of the support that I've received when it comes to, the brand itself. And one of the newest projects that we actually just finished, which is the project that I was just explaining to you, which is I'm doing half long term, half short term, which is Casa New Yorican. It's a 5 apartment multifamily that we purchased in Carolina. That was done, I want to say March, April this year. We just finished.
Okay, nice.
And then we're doing long term and short term, but we're also thinking about selling. And the reason why we're thinking about selling is because we actually make some pretty good money that will actually allow us to purchase a couple more properties.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like something that we're thinking about. So if anybody out there is thinking about purchasing, would love to talk to you because I would love to keep the ownership within our people, of course.
Okay.
So excited, man. Definitely just like I said, just continuously growing, networking, working with other business owners, working with other islanders. One of my good friends, Ramon Clemente, which I actually had on my show yesterday, he is actually starting a coffee brand, which I'm super excited for
Oh,
him
good.
about because we need to bring more entrepreneurs into the agriculture space over here. Man, when I
That's
tell
huge.
you, it's
Agriculture.
huge. It's huge. Like coffee, agriculture is big. If we have anybody like just that's in the agriculture industry, would love to connect with them as well.
Hmm.
Because that's something that I would love to, be a bridge on, which Puerto Rico, we suffer because our agriculture isn't used as it should be. That's just a reality. Would love to connect with some entrepreneurial people in the agriculture industry for sure.
Yeah, that's actually one of the pillars, like future under By the Block, which is feed the block. And it's really to have either
Absolutely.
large community gardens or to assist people in having them right in their backyard. There's so much to
Yeah.
that. Puerto Rico is so smart. I love our people. And when I went and I
Yeah.
like to
Love
the
them for
farm
real.
in Rio Grande, the hydroponics is so big out there. But there's so many ways to grow things and so many ways. I'm reading this book right now that I posted the other day, and it talked about post Maria and the agriculture that survived, which were all like the root
Mm.
vegetables that live underground and that sort of thing. And just continuing that, realizing from that look, we can plant things that will remain and sustain us during these times. And getting back to that because, of course, we know with colonialism and them bankrupting the island and,
Hmm.
taking all of our land and making it one crop instead of multiple crops so that it can sustain the
Yeah.
economy better. We have to get back to that. But I do think that there's a big movement for that. There's so much opportunity. I mean, farm to table is so huge. Somebody wants to go build a beautiful
Yeah.
farm to table. One of the organizations that I admire so much is the Happy Givers that are on the island. They're called the Happy Givers. They are amazing. They just started that program, Adopt a Grandparent, but they feed. I mean, they have this
Amazing.
huge garden and they feed so many viejitos and so many people from the community. So we can do that 100 times on the island if we just have
I
the people
agree.
who want to do it and have the heart. So to wrap this up, anyone who is thinking of moving to the island from the diaspora, what would your words of wisdom be?
My words of wisdom, the first thing, the most important thing of your whole life is your credit. Your credit will open up so many doors for you. So let's start there. I think that we need to start with the basics because a lot of us have aspirations and dreams, but then the minute that we get shut down from it, I think that we go back into a ball and say, okay, yeah, the world hurts. I don't want to do it again. I don't want us to feel, I want us to feel empowered. So the way you're going to feel empowered is education,
Hmm.
financial education, and not only financial education, but you also want to learn cultural education. The island, things that are going on over here, um, the landscape, the economic landscape, understand what you're stepping into. I wish I could say that people have welcomed me with open arms at all times. No, that's not always been the case, but it's okay because I know what's in my heart and I know that I have good intentions. So I can live with that and work and work and work until I can say, I told you so.
Hmm.
Like, look, we have this community center, like you said, we have this charter school, we have these long-term rentals that are affordable housing, we have this senior citizen home as well, because another thing that we need to talk about, which is senior citizen help. Like what
Yeah.
if we were to, create these centers for them? Because yes, we do have a aging population here. But how are we going to come to the table with all of our resources and help? So I think education, financial education, and for yourself, everyone out there, your credit is like, that is like your adult report card. If the bank wants to lend you money, they're going to look at your adult report card and say, hey, we can lend you money. I don't know. Hey, we can't lend you money. Now, another thing that I want people to understand is that just because you're not here or there already today doesn't mean 5 years, 10 years. Start, you know what I mean? Start, incorporating yourself. And I always tell people, visit often.
Yes.
Visit often. You'll know. Your heart will tell you. Your heart will tell you. Listen, when I got here, I was just like, I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving again. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I actually love this place. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think for me, like, I was a little lonely in the beginning, but no, man, this is such a beautiful, beautiful, like, island. So much to explore, so much to learn. Our people are beautiful. They're kind. You're gonna be welcomed in regards to hospitality. People will love you.
Mhm.
But yes, full circle, education, credit, finance, and I think that, doing your homework and visiting often would absolutely set you on board to be able to be like, you know what? I think I'm ready. And then connecting. Once you start connecting with people like myself and you, we have this charisma about the island that just it gives off and it shows true intentions and it shows the true like care and love that you have for the island.
100%. We need to continue to spread that
So
positivity. There's a lot of negativity when you say you want to move there or help there. There's no money there. There's no jobs there. There's no opportunity,
yeah,
all these things. And I tell people too, look,
it's
you
so
can do
heartbreaking.
that, but there's a million non-Puerto Ricans who moved there and made it happen, and they live great lives there. So don't let that lie from
Hmm.
colonialism, and the trauma that's been instilled upon our people for so many years. It's a lie. The opportunity is there.
A
Other
hundred
people are
percent.
taking advantage of it, and now it's our turn. It's our turn. It's our time. There's so many people that left, even before Maria, but especially after, who weren't able to
Right.
return. I think it's our time to return now. It's our time to go back, claim our island, but do right by it. Always do right by it and do right by the people
Agreed.
that, because they will be our neighbors, right? Those are, like you said, the hospitality.
Yeah,
We need to take care of each other. And now there's no better time than now with everything and the spotlight that's on Puerto Rico. So
absolutely.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud that you're from the
Yes.
LES
Thank you. Thank you.
because,
Continue,
growing up in that
continue growing.
neighborhood.
And for those out there, yeah, listen, for those out there, please, feel free to reach out to me at businessj21 on Instagram. I'm always willing to share knowledge. I'm always willing to, share experiences because I think we just need that. We need that open door of communication for our people to feel like, you know what, I'm gonna try, right? And even if it doesn't work out, at least I tried. And I think that that'll be the best approach for a lot of people in regards to moving to the island. Really just start education and try it. Try it. And I'm here to help. More than happy to help.
So you heard it there, everybody. Any last words you want to say to everybody out there?
No, just thank you. Thank you so much for having me, man. Let's make this happen, man. Like enough just talking. Let's do it. Like I'm out here. Come on.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you heard it. You have a friend in me. You have a friend in Josh. You have somebody who is on your side who's done it. There are people who have done it and done it successfully and done it responsibly, and with the right intentions. So I hope that that's what people walk away from when they hear your story and they watch this episode. So thank you.